Oh, we're missing a Nick. He'll be back in a second. How you doing there, Steve?
I'm doing fine.
Hey,
What
Nick.
are we gonna make
Hey
this a
guys.
practical stream?
Yeah, that was my plan for tonight. I wanted to do a practical
Oh,
application stream.
We're not practical?
oh,
We
we are
could,
very practical, but we still need to learn. And
Oh.
if I need to
yeah.
learn, probably other men need to learn too.
Well, and some of our streams deal a lot with abstract, right? We do a lot of
Okay.
thinking in our streams, which is good, and I love thinking. But occasionally, you got to get your hands dirty and really, you know, got to work with these
Sometimes you got to
concepts.
apply your thoughts.
Yeah. so
Imagine that.
So we're going to do a little bit of that tonight. And what we're going to talk about is I have 4 examples of arguments that we have all probably seen or had used against us. And I guess, we're doing this a couple days before the Christmas holidays. So you all are going to be around your families. And, you know, maybe if you listen to what we have to say tonight about some of these arguments, you'll hear them and you'll go, wait, I know how to deal with that. And you can use these arguments, you can use these responses all over in your life. So we're looking for kind of a practical episode tonight. So without further ado, the first one I want to talk about is one that you've probably all heard, and at least amongst our audience, I'm not too worried about you guys falling victim. And that's the lemmings argument, which is more or less everybody agrees with me, so why don't you? Now, in the context of women, they're most likely to use this argument on other women.
Mm.
I mean, women
Oh,
are
you mean
hurt.
like Teen Woman?
Yes, exactly. There's the team woman is an argument of lemmings. All women
Mm.
herd together, and so they push themselves off the cliff.
Just like an
So
appeal
this
to the
is
majority, in a sense.
It isn't. Yes, it
well, it's
is an
kind of
appeal to
like
much.
the herd mentality. The herd is over here. Why are you over there? Come with the herd. This is what the herd believes.
The herd is safe, right?
Nah.
Well, sheep, yes, sheep herds, herds of gazelle, prey.
Mm.
Here's a thought to think about, you girls. Prey animals herd together. So you of the sisterhood out there are basically admitting that you are the weaker sex because you're saying I'm the prey animal, and so I have to group together with my girlies who will defend me from the evil men. And that is exactly what they do.
Well, yeah, because if they stray from the herd, the lone wolf is going to come in and capture them.
And they might enjoy that.
They kind of do.
So
What?
for you women out there and you guys out there, because one of the things that I've also seen is that women will frequently go to men and they will say, everyone agrees with us about insert feminist bullet point here. So why don't you agree with us? You claim you're a feminist, man who, believes in the equality of women. Why don't you agree with us? Well, what's the typical defense you think that guys tend to use?
Usually you go into logic and say, well, this doesn't seem consistent. And you try to logic your way out of it, which is kind of a failure because women don't logic like men do.
Right. So
I
you
agree.
might say, I'm not a lemming. Well, of course I'm not a lemming. I'm a man. Right. You
I
might, you
say,
might.
my existence equals a boost.
Well,
You just take it away from them.
well,
You just say,
that is
not only
that is
that,
the
I'm everything worse.
that is the correct response, right? The correct response is not. So this is an example of the woman's trying to, and this is a lightweight example. This is not a very powerful example. Herds are not inherently powerful, but or they're only inherently powerful as a herd. When they're dealing with a, you know, a localized chunk of the herd will give itself up, you know, to satiate the predator, or will lose to satiate the predator. Anyway, the it's an emotional appeal to your human desire for a tribe, and even men have a human desire for a tribe, right? We do.
It's like peer pressure.
Yeah. Are men as subject to peer pressure? Not necessarily in all cases, but it's still
Yeah,
there.
that's been a particular problem with me growing up. I was never really very subject to. I was like in elementary school, but I got over it. I got in trouble too many times for doing stupid things.
Well, there's an example of a type of man who is very influenced by the nice guy.
There it
Uh,
is. There it is.
Oh, yes, if I go along to get along, then I will be
mhm.
accepted and liked. I have to be nice to be liked. So even if it compromises my beliefs, I just go along with it. Because then they will like me.
Right. So
And that is the majority of your pastors out there, guys. No spineless cowards that just want to be nice and appease all the ladies and the
well,
boomers.
Okay.
Nick.
Okay. I need to say this right here. You can be a good man and not be nice.
Yes.
Yes.
Well,
Nice is not a virtue.
well, Nick, we've been talking about how pastors have to pander to the women. So doesn't it make
Mhm.
sense then that they would be on team women, that they would, that, you know, when the women say, well, everyone agrees with us, why, you know, why don't
Oh,
you? That
oh, yeah, there's that like that Eli Mc whatever his name Mc blah blah. He's kind of a limp wristed guy. Yeah, he's talking to me about that today. He's like, yeah, you're this terrible abusive man that you know towards your family. They had to flee halfway across the country because you're a bad man. Team woman, no
right.
analysis of the facts.
Well, being
But your actions caused her to feel bad. You hurt her
Oh, you mean I actually
feelings.
I
You,
took my balls back?
yes, and you violated the 11th commandment. Thou shalt not hurt a woman's feelings.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's called emotional abuse or verbal whatever. Or
Yes,
that's why I
but
just say at
that
this
all
point, like,
falls under
hey,
the
I just show up in a room, I'm automatically like, my mere presence, my mere existence is abuse.
I
That's
know you're
because
go
you don't
go ahead.
placate and pander, Nick.
Well,
I don't have
and
time for that
remember,
shit anymore.
Nick, and remember that for a lot of the women and a lot of the herd, the simple existence of the lion is a threat,
Uh-huh.
right? I mean that's herd mentality 101. You join the herd because the lion is a threat. And of course, the I mean, I can stretch this metaphor really far and still have it stick, because occasionally the herd has to give up a member of the herd to the lion. Like, and that always, the lion always gets its meal, like, or not always, but it most often gets its meal, right? The lion is going to win most of the time. Now, the greater herd might be okay. The greater herd might escape, but it's going to give up a woman now and then, and occasionally those women are come over here to the dark side of the internet.
You don't
Usually what
underestimate the
happens
power of
is
the dark side.
a woman separates herself from the herd, get ravaged by the lion, and then goes running back to the herd and says how terrible it was until she does it again.
Mm-hmm. So there we go.
So the lemmings.
There's your clippable moment. We just called women lemmings. There you go. That's how we're gonna be remembered
Okay,
now.
so we're kind of an older group. I don't know if the younger generation knows what the lemmings are.
Well, lemmings are a species of rodent that live way up in the north. And what would happen is the herds of lemmings, they're a prey animal. They're way down on the biological food chain. And but every few years there would become so many of them that, and people will say, oh, they were psychologically driven to jump off a cliff. And the answer is no, not really. What usually ends up happening is the herd ends up getting cornered, and lemmings in their fear would literally just push over the cliff, and a bunch of them would fall to their death. And I mean, these animals are not smart at all.
They had like a video game too back in the day. I don't know if
Yeah,
anybody ever.
yeah. But and then between the predators and the falling off cliffs to their deaths, that would thin the herd out. And that was part of it, their biological cycle. So, but yes, they are a real thing.
So you say it's peer pressure and what else? The lemmings.
Well, the lemmings, it's peer pressure, but it's also just like with all herds, it's also just a need to be in a group. The
Okay.
argument of the lemmings is everyone agrees with me. The group agrees with me. You are going against the group, therefore you're wrong and bad,
Mm.
but mostly wrong. The group agrees that feminism is the correct answer. And if you disagree, you're wrong and bad.
Mm.
So there's a herd of lemmings, a group of lemmings, up on a plain. They see a threat. And then they all run from the threat. Kind of becomes a mob mentality. Everybody's moving in a certain direction. The ones behind are pushing the ones in forward, and we're all moving in this direction. And the plain, at the edge of the plain, there's a cliff. They will keep running in that direction until they go off the cliff because something scared them. And then they all move as one to their demise. Is that also accurate?
Well, you know, when you're, I don't know if you're in your childhood, this phrase came up, but it's like if all, if everybody jumped off a cliff, would you do it too?
Well, the answer to young boys is you get 6 boys up on a roof. The first one says, I'm He Man, and he jumps off the roof. How many of the other boys are going to jump off the roof to prove they can do it too?
A good number of them. And yeah, I heard that phrase growing up too. And I heard it as if everyone jumped off a bridge, would you jump too?
No, yeah, I've heard that one. Yeah.
Yeah. And the when the thing about that argument though is because when somebody says it to you, you go, well, of course I wouldn't jump off a bridge. I don't want to die, right? But when you apply it to larger scale problems like feminism, all of a sudden the tribe takes over. The point, one of the points of this argument, and the reason it works as well as it does, is because that need for tribe is built deep into our psychology.
Hey, there's kind of a corollary example this morning. Okay, I drive truck for a living, so I hook onto my trailer and I drive out of the yard. Well, it's cold up here. Today it was like 10 degrees. Well, if your trailer tires, generally they have drum brakes, so you drive them through snow. Snow builds up in there. You use your brakes a few times on the trailer, heats it up, get a little wet. You bring it back to the yard, and boom, you drop your trailer. If you set your brakes right away, there's moisture in between the shoe and the drum, and it freezes. And your wheels don't turn. Well, it was fine when you parked it, but the next guy who hooks onto that trailer, the wheels aren't going to turn. So a good truck driver will, he'll make 2 wiggle turns so he can see the tandems on his trailer on both sides to make sure all the wheels are turned. If they're not, you got to get out with your hammer, lay on your back underneath the trailer, and pound on those brake drums until it goes bong, and then it rings like a bell, and you know. So anyway, you got to do that. Well, this morning I drive out of the yard, and there is 2 shiny streaks the whole way out to the street. So I call up the other guy, the yard guy, and say, did somebody drag a trailer out of here? Because those shiny tracks were kind of polished the whole way out. Okay, well, you know why I check my brakes? Number one, it's a good practice. I don't want to be the fool that everybody's talking about. The dumb shit that pulled the trailer out and flattened the damn tires and caused a big problem. I don't want to be seen. I don't want everybody to laugh at me. So, it's peer pressure.
But is it bad in this case?
No, it's not
See.
bad.
See,
But it's funny if the things you do, other people notice, and you don't want them to notice and talk about you. So, damn, you better check your shit out.
well, so this is I think it's actually something that's really important to point out. Peer pressure and the psychological need for tribe and the psychological need not to be proven an idiot has actually given us humans some, like, okay, you're describing a situation where it's used positively, and we were talking earlier about situations where it's used negatively. The thing about
like
these
Socrates and the sophists.
right, the thing about these situations and the psychology is that we're not saying the psychology is wrong or bad. What we're saying is that these arguments are an attempt to hook into your psychology and elicit a result that might not be all that good for you. Right? It's a manipulation. And you're going to see that about all the different arguments that we're going to talk about tonight. All of these involve some sort of manipulation of your psychology.
Well, these traits,
that's sophistry,
motivations.
Isn't it?
Yes, it is.
These traits and motivations exist. Therefore, unconsciously, and it's usually unconscious, people learn to exploit these and use your nature against you.
Yes.
That's what we're talking about.
The psychopaths are masters at this. And I would go so far as to say that in certain cases, in fact, we've got one coming up later tonight. You're going to see how much of this group behavior of certain groups is nothing more than weaponized mass psychopathy. I have to say that one a few times fast. Or group psychopathy. And I would go so far, because we're 20 minutes in now, I would go so far as to say that your feminists are just a group of weaponized group psychopathy. I'm going to have fun saying that all night long. But the point here, the point of this the Lemmings argument, most of you guys aren't going to have big of a problem with, because you know most of our listeners are going to go, "You're wrong. Not everybody agrees with you, and we both know it." And that is a better defense. You don't let them have it. You say, "Nope, you're wrong." I've
Or you agree and amplify just to piss them off.
That's a tactic too. If you just want to shut the conversation down, you just go, "Nope, you're wrong," and you know that not everyone agrees with you. Like, if you want to agree and amplify just to piss them off, because Nick enjoys doing that on Twitter, as many of you know, that's up to you. And with a lot of these, you're going to find that there is more than one way to respond. You know, and you can pick your response based on what you're trying to do. Like, if you're just trying to be a troll, your book of possible responses opens way up. But if
they're already they're already being illogical. They're not going to listen to reason. A lot of these people,
right? Yes. So
beat them at their own game.
Right. And so what you're going to hear a lot of tonight is the common or typical defense against these arguments is some sort of very logical, rational, well, I'm not a lemming. Well, my side isn't bad because of this reason and that reason and whatever. And when we talk about how to actually respond to these, they're not going to be, I mean, there might be logic in the response, but they're a lot of times we're going to say, "Nope, you're wrong," and I'm not going to let you have that high ground, so to speak. So that's,
well, have you ever in your years on this earth used logic to convince a woman that she is wrong about one of her beliefs?
no.
Have you ever tried to use that logic?
Yes.
All you have.
And I think that's true of all men throughout history. They try to use logic in a discussion or a disagreement with a woman. And it never works. Yet we all try it.
And one of the takeaways
part of the reason they're told to go home.
Well, one of the takeaways from tonight is, just whenever you get into a fight with a woman, don't try logic. It's not to say that you need to abandon logic. Your argument still needs to have reason behind it. Why? Because women will happily use, if you make an irrational, illogical argument, women will happily use that against you. Like, women know that men are supposed to argue like that. But it's not about trying to argue from a position of logic where emotion is being used. Oh, this is a good comment. I want to pull this one up. This is Chief talking here. Author of The Sociopath Next Door talks about confusion when a psychopath responded pity when she asked them, "What do you want most?" till she understood normies have little defense against it. Yeah. The psychopath wants your pity because it is the quickest way to get you to bypass your rational defenses. Remember, we're not saying give up your rational defense here. We're not saying, in fact, I would say without a rational mind, these arguments work better. These arguments need an irrational mind. They need an emotional mind. And we're going to get into some really cool examples of why that's so important. But
you cannot out emotion a woman.
Correct. So don't try. Don't give them that would be just donating your frame to a woman to try to win an argument, which is retarded, like actually retarded. Yes, I'm going to donate my frame to try and win this argument with a woman. Good luck with that. So, the next argument that you will hear used a lot, particularly all of these arguments tonight have to do with either women or the church. Why? Because that's what we talk about. This is not a comprehensive list of all the possible idiocy you will see in the argument space, but all of the arguments tonight have to do with women or the church. And so this next one,
You know
or go ahead,
why?
Steve.
Let me explain that. Why? Because I can have an argument with a man. It can get very heated. We may or may not reach agreement. We may or may not resolve it. We may be super pissed at each other and not talk for 2 days. And then we come back and okay, it's all good. Yeah, okay, we won't touch that subject again, and life goes on. But with a woman, it never ends there. With a church, it never ends there. It goes on and on and on. And you can't just it never reaches its conclusion. So which are the arguments that trouble men the most? Arguments with the church and arguments with women.
Pretty much.
So that's why we're focusing on those.
And we're gonna keep focusing on not just this episode. There will be much more of this. Yes, Nick, we see you over there. He's sharpening his knife, his rhetorical knife.
Yeah.
So the next argument on the list is the what about. You've probably heard it either as whataboutery or whataboutism. But the general form of the argument, it's a specialization of the tu quoque, which is just Latin for you too. And the argument basically goes, well, you do something, insert superficially similar thing here. So because you do this superficially similar thing, that makes what I'm doing okay. And really, the level of similarity does not need to be anything more than both things are considered bad. I've seen, whataboutism used, it's how you end up. It's kind of a slippery slope. It's actually not. It's mostly related to tu quoque, but it kind of like people can use it to argue that, because you said something that they don't like on the internet, that you're now a mustache man follower. Right.
Well, okay.
Right.
Well,
Because you
yeah.
did something, you said something superficially bad.
I like Rommel. Oh, by the way, he didn't like Hitler anyway, so I can't say that word. I'm gone.
Yep, there we go. All gone. So
he's a bad man. There you go.
Well, so you will see you're actually most likely to see this in the political space, particularly amongst nations. So a very common version of this argument will go something like, well, the United States invaded X. Vietnam was popular for a time. Iraq has been the most popular. So that makes it okay for us to do either invade another country or economic warfare of some form. Whatever it is they're trying to do, the fact that your country did something similar to it, even if for very different reasons, right?
Well, both like some might both like beer.
Yeah.
Well, I know a lot of English guys and American guys that like beer. Well, Germans like beer.
So then
no!
Why? So then why did the Germans invade? Come on, they both like beer. What's wrong with them?
But how does that explain why the Germans went into Poland? Does Poland have good beer?
Mm.
I don't know. I've never had anything from there.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know.
I mean, Czechoslovakia. Yeah, because that's where Pilsen is.
Pilsner, yeah.
Pilsner comes from Pilsen. So yeah, okay, that could explain wanting Czechoslovakia, but Poland? I don't know. I think your analogy fails there, but that's the point. That's the point of this. An analogy might be superficially sound good, but it doesn't really hang together on its own merits.
Okay. So how does this apply to women? Where might you guys have seen some whataboutism from women? Oh, come on, guys.
Oh, fresh
Okay, body count?
Body count.
Body count.
There it is.
Yeah.
The body count comes up.
That's
Well,
I'd say they're both bad.
yeah, men don't like women
They're
with
not
high
the
body
same.
count. Yeah, but men do that too.
I'm not saying it's right.
Those men have
two wrongs don't make a right. Come on.
Well, Nick. Remember, in the case of the geopolitical whataboutism, they were complaining about the United States invading Vietnam or Iraq. You can make a good case that those weren't good, that it's not a good idea to invade a sovereign nation. You can make a case for right, okay. And you kind of have to, you look at them and go, yeah, you're right. That wasn't okay. That doesn't make it okay when you do it.
Right. But also, yeah, the two things can both be bad. Which one is more bad?
Doesn't matter, is the actual answer. I mean,
there's also things that could be I don't know. I still think both are bad, fresh and fit, but it's actually worse for the woman because it really.
Well, when it comes down to body count, yes.
Yeah.
Because men and women's brains operate differently. They prioritize different things, and their experiences have different impacts on them. Okay, equal does not mean same. Equal in worth before God does not mean we're the same. And so it's a false equivalence to assume that if a man does something, it's going to have equal impact, repercussions, in the case of evil, on him as it does on a woman. As a similar action, because the actions are not quite the same. They might be similar, but the impact might be completely different. The temporal, the mind impact. Now, in God's eyes, they might be the same things. Because I do not have the mind of God. I don't know the mind of God. So I'm not going to make that argument.
Right. Well, and this goes back to and we can relate this back to the geopolitical argument. We're steel manning here now, right? Say, okay, the United States invaded, it has been involved in a lot of wars. Well, okay, you can make the argument that each one of those wars was a bad idea for any one of them. Okay. But the net result of the particularly post World War II era that the United States was very geopolitically adventurous is one of the most prosperous, stable, prosperous economically, one of the most stable worldwide. Yes, there were wars, but they were small wars. We haven't fought a really big war since World War II. And a lot of the work that the United States did was in an effort to contain destabilizing forces. Whether or not that was executed with the highest moral, and ethical frameworks at all times, I would have to say probably not. Okay. But overall, you can look at the world with the United States being, Team America World Police. My older millennials will get the reference. as the world actually was a relatively decent place to live for one of the rare times in human history. Whereas if you look at from before World War II, particularly I'm thinking of like the Napoleonic Wars or where there's wars of conquest, those wars tend to produce a whole lot of death and destruction for not a whole lot of gain to any party except the ego. I mean, I'm thinking of Napoleon here, except the ego of the people who fought, who win. And there was a ton of death and destruction. There's a ton of instability, both economic and social, but also those things slowed down progress. They actually slow down humanity's ability to improve itself. So, not all war is created equal. Again, I'm not saying that the U.S. doing what it did was some sort of flawless ethical and moral thing, but and this goes back to Steve, what you were saying, different impacts. And it's a conversation for a different video, but there is a reason why the United States had a different impact on the world than Napoleon did.
Well, I guess, okay, this is my personal belief. Some of the things that the U.S. has done to impose its will around the world have been downright tyrannical and wrong.
Mhm.
But to illustrate, okay, yes, they were wrong, they were tyrannical, could even say they were evil. But since they were so powerful, it did also bring stability to the world. Not total, absolute stability, not stability in all places, but in general,
Mm-hmm.
stability over everything. So that's the same way in a patriarchy or a monarchy.
Mm-hmm.
Not
Yes,
everything the leader does is good.
that's correct.
He's in control and not so far over the line that it's egregiously oppressive. It can bring stability. But that does not mean every action that leader does was morally good.
Absolutely.
Would you agree with that?
I would 110% agree with that, because and and here again, the reason that the whataboutism argument works is because it is fundamentally working on your psychology of, yeah, you're right. We, etc. did, that really wasn't a very good thing. Right. So when I hear the what about arguments about what the United States did, you know what I do most of the time? I shrug my shoulders and go, yeah, and the world was a better place overall for it. I'm not saying we did perfect, uh, but it's the world was a relatively safe place where things like, I think about it. Could air travel, where we just get on a plane and go somewhere in the world and have a reasonable expectation that we're going to make our flight home without getting mugged in the streets when we get there. Could that have existed in the Napoleonic world? I don't think so.
Yeah. Why? What's the difference? Overwhelming power.
Yeah.
Stability comes from a patriarchy, and because men have the power and enforce the rules. Doesn't mean they're always right, but there's that enforcement.
Mm-hmm.
They're always in charge, and the power is in one entity, which brings stability. If power is in 2 or 5 or 10 entities, equivalent power, that's stability.
No, the powers end up fighting with each other all the time.
So, if you equate marriage as a partnership, Who has the
Bingo.
power? Ooh, you share the power. You both have power. You end up fighting. The
Yep.
man is the head and the patriarch, he has the power. Okay, that's it. You're going to have more stability than if two are always fighting because they're equal in power. And whoever fights hardest at the time prevails.
Pretty much.
That's correct.
I was gonna say, Nick is over there being very quiet, so we're either very wrong or very right. I think I know where we sit, Steve.
You guys are fine. I'm thinking about something.
Care to share with the
It's
class?
yeah, I'll find it.
Oh, I see. He's looking something up. Okay.
Yeah. It's a quote I've said before. Da, da, da.
Well, so Alex, I'm going to read this while he's looking it up.
Here we go.
Responsibility without authority is the definition of, I can't say that word on YouTube. Exactly. This is the flip side of that. When you have responsibility and no authority, you cannot create any stability. You're just going to be constantly butting your heads with literally everybody. Not just your spouse, your own children even. Because they know you have no
Well,
authority. Go ahead, Nick.
Robert Louis Dabney in the 19th century said, the abolition of marriage would follow again by another cause, the divergent interest and the rival independence of the two equal wills would be irreconcilable with domestic government or union or peace. Shall the children of this monstrous no union be held responsible to two variant, coordinate, and supreme wills at once? Have heaven pity the children. Shall the two parties to this perpetual co-partnership have neither the power to secure the performance of the mutual duties nor to dissolve it? It is a self-contradiction, an impossible absurdity. Such a co-partnership of equals with independent interests must be separable at will, as all other such co-partnerships are. The only relation between the sexes which will remain will be a cohabitation continuing so long as the convenience or caprice of both parties may suggest. And this, with most, will amount to a vagrant concubinage. There you go.
You mean people saw this coming?
Oh, that was Robert Louis Dabney in the 19th century when he's engaging with first waivers. Yeah.
Right. So
It happened.
And this was like what, 160, 150 years ago?
Something like that, yeah. A long time ago.
So, to our listeners out there, not exactly a new concept we're talking about here. And everyone is, the world is multipolar. Now, everyone's saying that. Rue the day that the world actually is multipolar. That is the day, like the day that all the guys out there saying, I don't want to go to war. I don't want to go to war. Okay. Si vis pacem, parabellum. Okay. If you don't want to go to war, you have to be the biggest, baddest mother effer on the planet. And everyone will get in line, but all these guys, oh yeah, you're just simping for geopolitical equality. No, you want the US to be the biggest, baddest fucker out there. Okay. And it's because it's because of the same dynamic that you see in marriages. Nope, the guy is the head. There's one. This equalitarian bullshit doesn't work it works no better in the large scale than it does in the small scale.
All right.
So, how would you guys respond to a what about argument? And the Wikipedia article on this has a whole bunch of different ways you can, but how would you guys respond to this?
Hmm. I mean, you could logically just show how you could give evidence, you could show the logical argumentation about what it is, but if you're talking to the church and women, eh, I don't know how
Usually,
I would get across to them.
usually I view it as a deflection. Say, well, okay, we can talk about that, but first we have to resolve what we're talking about here. So let's talk about
Oh, like
this
in a
topic.
spousal argument.
Yes.
Like you're trying to address something, and then she brings something else up, and then something else up, and then something else up.
Bingo.
I call it chasing rabbits, getting you off your
Yeah.
task.
Okay.
No, here's our focus. This is our topic. We're not talking about what about that over there. We're talking about this.
Oh man, I had many arguments that go to like 3, 4 in the morning. That started at 8 o'clock. Talked about torture. What about? What about? What about? And it started on one thing.
Uh-huh. And the whole world gets brought in as you're arguing, right?
See, after about the between the 2nd to the 43rd, what about? Did you get confused someplace in there about what the original argument was about?
Well, hell yeah. Plus, I was tired as shit. I just wanted it to end.
Oh, you just wanted it to end. Bingo.
So at that point, you were just arguing for the sake of arguing. You weren't
Oh.
arguing about anything in particular.
Oh, and then I get accused like, "Oh, you're just saying I'm right, so I'd shut up." I get accused of that. I'm like, well, what if that's true?
That's a whole separate chain of arguments. Like I'm
I wasn't
agreeing with
always
you, and
plugged
that's
in,
not
guys.
good enough
I
anymore.
wasn't. I wasn't always unplugged, guys. So
Yeah, that's true of
Okay.
all
Yeah.
of us, I think.
Let me give you a little bit of advice, Nick. 'Cause I've learned this the hard way. When you get in an argument with a woman, okay, you just, it's like you super tune your logic. Okay, I really want to understand what she's saying, what she's trying to tell me. And so you move into high logic, she moves into high emotion. And you're paying attention to her words. You're trying to figure out what the fuck is the point? Would you just get to the point? Okay, I'm focused on listening to your words because I want to get the point. Well, guess what, guys? There is no point. You're focused on the wrong thing. You're focused on trying to understand what she's thinking. She's not thinking.
No.
She's talking around in circles. Stop focusing on what she's thinking. There is no point, so don't go looking for it. What should you listen to? What do her words say about her emotions? What emotional state is she in? Her words only convey emotions. They do not convey information. So if you're in an argument, she's in a feisty mood. She has contempt for you. She has disrespect, whatever, and it'll move from topic to topic. The only linkage is her emotions. There is no logical track between the points, if there is any points. It's all about emotions. So
You're
stop
saying that
listening
women
to the
don't
words.
but you're saying women don't think the same way as men?
Absolutely. Women feel, men think. Okay, that's a
Isn't that misogynist?
generalization.
Isn't that misogynist?
Oh,
Okay.
from a
It's
woman's point
reality.
of view,
It's fucking reality, right?
absolutely it is. But you know what? There's the door.
Oh well.
Oh well, that's reality though. That's the
Yeah.
reality that they don't. Oh.
Okay, Chief. This is a good question. How much arguing is addiction based? I hated her,
Oh,
some such. Probably more than we're willing to acknowledge, because how many times do you hear these women when they're with their simpy boyfriend say, "I just wish he would make me feel something. He make me," yeah, and then of course when they say feel something, they're thinking about how, you know, Chad and Tyrone made her feel. Right? She just wants to feel something. Women want to feel something. And so, part of the arguing, Nick, when you were saying, this is kind of what I was thinking about too, when you were talking about, you're arguing it 8 hours later and the argument's got everything, and you just say, fine, I agree with you. And then she hits back with, well, you're just saying that to get me to shut up. And you're like, yes, I am. She wasn't there to argue a point. She was there to feel something. And the cool thing
fuck it
about
was. I still have no clue.
well, but the cool thing about whataboutery is, because there's an endless list of sins, there's an endless list of ways to provoke another argument. So whataboutery or whataboutism, it's just, it never ends, because there's always something that you're guilty of.
Yes.
Wouldn't they
Okay,
say
you're
about being
arguing
on the
about
rooftop?
yes. Okay, here's what happens. You start a discussion and it turns into an argument. It triggers feelings within her. And then she goes into the what about. And now she's in a certain mental state with certain feelings, which reminds her of that thing you did 6 years ago, which has nothing in relation to what you're talking about today, but it made her feel the same way. So now the kitchen sink, everything in the kitchen sink, because now she goes, it's like a major Rolodex in there. And she's spinning through that to everything that ever happened in the past. Well, how long have you been together? 10, 12, 15, 17, 20 years. She can go through that Rolodex and come up with 7 examples of things you did that made her feel the same way. Therefore, they're pertinent and valid in this discussion right now. And men are going, what the hell? I thought we resolved that one.
Well,
You did, but it's triggering the same fucking emotion. Therefore, keep in mind, the linkage is emotions. Listen for a woman's emotions.
so Steve,
And maybe things will become more clear. Yeah, go ahead.
what you're describing is actually what I said when I introduced this. The similarity of the offense being whatabouted only need be that whatever action is being brought up can be interpreted as somehow bad, right? In this case, the bad thing makes girl feel bad, therefore you're doing that to her right now because she feels it right now. So you're whatever this thing is, and that's how these unrelated arguments happen. And as a guy, using our logic and reason, we're going to go, well, but we're going to say one of two things. Well, either it isn't that bad, or we're going to say, well, no, here's my personal favorite bad response to a whataboutism. Well, it's different because, it wasn't bad because, I was like, no, don't. With whataboutism, you don't fight with trying to refute the argument about the thing that's bad. That's the mistake people make. If people accuse the United States of saying, of invading because we say invading people is bad, don't do it. And so what they're looking for is that sort of, well, you say invading people's bad, but you do it yourself, so you're bad. Okay. The problem is, then you turn around and you say, oh, well, it's not that bad when I do it. Okay. Notice how our defense of what the United States did not rest on the moral and ethical goodness of what the United States was doing. This is the reason why I kind of took that and said, you're right. A lot of what we did and how we did it really wasn't very good. but the net result was positive. And that's true for patriarchy as well. But the woman needs to make the thing, the morality of the thing, the center point of the argument. And that's what whataboutism is at its core, is trying to make the emotion, morality, etc., the core point, and not about the results of the various actions being taken. Because you can't win a fight on morality when you're doing something for the greater. Okay, Steve, would you agree that murder is Stephen? Murder is immoral and unethical.
Sure.
Okay, but now I kill somebody who is invading my house and my wife and kids are at home. Now is it immoral and ethical and unethical?
Well, can I answer like a woman?
Go ahead.
Sometimes yes, sometimes no. Depends on how big his gun was. Depends on whether he was starving. Depends if you've already murdered someone over there and he comes in and now you kill him in self-defense. How do I know it's self-defense? So maybe sometimes yes, maybe sometimes no. We can't know because every situation is different.
Uh-huh. What you just did there is the argument Joe Biden made when he pardoned 37 death row inmates this morning. So men can make female arguments too. But the point is that in whataboutery, the point is to make the argument about the feelings, morals, ethics, and not about the results. Because we can look at the results and we could say, okay, this was not fun, not good, but the world was a better place as a result, or the family had, was more stable, the kids were more disciplined, right? We can look at the outcomes and say, yeah, that wasn't okay. Going back to family, corporal punishment. I think I've talked about the fact that my parents used corporal punishment on me, and how I do believe that that's part of what made me as disciplined as I am. And I'm not saying I'm perfectly disciplined, but I have discipline. Okay. Why? And not only did my mom not go, oh, well, that's so mean. Frequently, she would say, just wait till your dad gets home.
Yep.
Yeah, Nick
That was
knows.
terrible. That was the worst part, was
It was
that
the wait.
waiting till dad got home.
Right. You can make an argument that corporal punishment is immoral. I mean, and we hear, oh, I can't even say that on YouTube, right? But doing that to kids, how could you? That's terrible. It's good for the kid.
There's that old Christian adage, spare the rod, spoil the child, which is basically a derivation of what's in the Bible.
Yep.
The Bible says you need to discipline and correct your children.
Yes, it does.
And it does not limit what a man can do. Now, we have to interpret morality. What's moral for a man to do? Well, there's been a lot of discussions about that over time, and there is a limit, but that's open for interpretation, and every man ultimately has to be his own guide for what he can do. And so I can look at when a man, yeah, that was too far, or that was obviously way too far. But am I going to tell another man what the limits on his authority is? No, because it's not my job.
It's between him and his God. And I'm saying that way on purpose.
Okay, guys. So like this whataboutism, we can go back if we want to go back to men and women and arguing and all that. It requires generally women to be disciplined, to not be so contentious and quarrelsome. But sometimes, some women, there's nothing you can do. And oh, the Bible talks about that in Proverbs 21. One is verse 9 says it's better to live in a corner of a housetop than in a house shared with a quarrelsome woman. Or 21 verse 19. It's better to live in a desert land than with a quarrelsome and fretful woman. Hey, you can have all the frame in the world, but you can have that woman, and there's nothing you can do.
Women still have agency, guys.
So, Nick, what's that stuff in the Bible about telling Christians to have a fear of the Lord?
Yeah.
What's that about?
What is fear of the Lord? You should have reverence towards the Lord, have a respect for the Lord.
Well,
I think I see
fear.
where I think I see
No,
where Steve is
fear
going with
of
this.
the Lord.
Okay.
I think I see where he's going with this.
What do you mean by that, Steve?
Okay, here's my thought.
Okay.
Okay, you had when your mother said you did something wrong, wait till your father got home. You had a fear of your father, respect for his authority, and the
And power.
consequences of your behavior. So that was fear, and that led to your self discipline because it was externally imposed discipline, then self discipline, a fear or an understanding of consequences of your behavior, that what you do will result in you're going to have to pay the price for what you did. There is an ultimate authority. Now, if women never experience discipline or consequences of their behavior, they have no fear, they have no respect, they have no future imagination of what might happen if they choose a particular behavior. Okay, so let's go back to children. Children who are not disciplined and have suffered no consequences for their behavior growing up, do
Yeah.
they become good citizens? Do they become
No.
criminals? Do
Yes.
do okay, if the father is the head and he brings the discipline in, how do children raised by single mothers without the father's discipline component fare? Whoa, isn't there some statistics out there about
Yeah.
prisons are filled with
The children of single moms.
people? Yeah. So there was no fear of the father, no fear of God, no fear of consequences. This seems like anarchy, not patriarchy.
Yep.
Yeah.
Is fear so? Therefore, is fear of God a good thing?
Yes.
Is that where you thought I was going, Plutarch?
Yes, it was actually. Um, so I think we've dealt with whataboutism plenty here. The next one is one that I was introduced to recently, and this is a very common one that you're going to see out of the Christian circles. So, I mean, it's good that we've been in the Bible for a bit here because all you churchies, this one's for you. So, and this is related to some recent controversies in the church, specifically with the reformed 304 types. So, I'm actually going to pull up a tweet here and we'll get into it because the picture that comes with the tweet is actually very illustrative. So, this is a pretty well known YouTuber. Um, be on guard for this popular, it's a leftist trick. He calls it later a rhetorical fraud, and I think that's a good description. It's called the Mott and Bailey fallacy, and it refers to a type of castle design. This fallacy, named after the Mott and Bailey Castle, is a rhetorical fraud, and I want everyone to remember that. It's not so much a fallacy as it is it's literally a fraudulent way of making an argument. that conflates two superficially similar arguments, one harmless, the Mott, and one subversive, the Bailey. The leftist advances the subversive argument, but when challenged, insists that they are promoting the harmless one. Upon retreating to the Mott, the leftist claims that you have not refuted the Bailey because you refused to attack the Mott, or that you are being unreasonable by equating an attack on the Bailey with an attack on the Mott. And the reason that I said this picture is, let's see. So here's an example. Christians must love everyone. The Bailey, that means approve of their sins. The Mott, that means be supportive of their struggle. So when the Christians come in and they say, wait a minute, I don't have to approve of the sins of a Reformed 304, the Christians can retreat to the Mott and they can say, but you're not being supportive of their struggle. You're not being, yeah, Nick, I see, yes, I saw that, Nick, but, and there's a key point here. And this is another psychological hook. This is a way to shut you up, because now I know it's not going to shut Nick up because he's pretty much had it with stuff like this, but
Nope.
you will see it.
Done with the bullshit.
Right. This is a favorite of Christians. Now, the tweeter, he goes on to, so he says it's about the left, but I mean, he put this, the picture is in a Christian
It's in the
form.
right too.
Yeah. And here's the thing, and I'm going to say this, the TradCon right does more of this than the left does right now. I don't know if they always have, so I'm not going to say that, but right now, particularly the TradCon Christian right is working this fraudulent rhetorical device over time to try and tell you guys that you need to go wife up the Reformed horse. You don't, because that would mean approving of their sins. When you wife up a woman who has been objectively evil, and I would classify somebody like Nala as objectively evil of her actions, you're approving of them. You are taking away the temporal consequences of those actions. Note, I'm not saying don't be supportive of her in her struggle, and she should be praying with other women. I mean, a nunnery would be good for women like this. I know, Steve, that you're going, yes. He said a Catholic point. But from a rhetorical standpoint, I wanted to bring this up because I see so many Christians, particularly on the TradCon right now, using this exact argument to basically say that what Nala did was, the Christians will never say that it was okay. Okay, they outright, but what they will, here's the rhetorical device they will use. They will say, well, Christ forgives her, so it doesn't matter anymore. Yes, Nick, I see that, but saying that that because Christ forgave them, it doesn't matter anymore, it's a form of soft approval. You're not saying, oh, girl, I agree with your decision to go get run through by as many guys as you. No, what you're saying is, what you did doesn't matter. So try this on. What you did doesn't matter because God forgives you. So I don't have to hold you accountable for any of that. You don't have to suffer any consequences of that.
Yeah. Well, sometimes nature does give them consequences like infertility, STDs, not being able to pair bond. Seared, that's a lot of stuff.
But you can't count on those consequences being delivered by nature, particularly if the women are young.
I'm confused here. A woman has STDs and she accepts Jesus into her heart. becomes born again, don't her STDs automatically get cured?
There you go. You caught the logic of where I was going, Steve. Very good.
Right.
Well,
But
if they don't, holy shit, the Christians are wrong. There are circumstances and repercussions of that sin that transcend salvation. And I'm using transcend to in the sense that they come along, they move across the salvation event, and they're still present.
salvation, I don't know, Nick. I would say salvation is purely from a human standpoint, it's purely a spiritual thing. I'm not
No, it's
saying
bodily too, but not
oh,
on this side of heaven.
right. Yeah. Well, right. Not
There is the
in,
resurrection.
right. That's really what I was trying to say is okay. Nala, she could be saved. I don't know. Okay. She could have found salvation. This does not negate any of the temporal consequences that she has or will suffer. But what this argument does in particular is it attempts to say that because somebody has found eternal salvation, that we should, if not approve of their temporal consequences, then at least ignore their temporal consequences. And here's something else I would say that also built into this is another kind of illogical. I don't know if it's a fallacy or what, but just because you're being supportive of somebody in their struggle doesn't mean that you have to attempt to absolve them of their temporal consequences. And in fact, trying to absolve them of the temporal consequences is very likely hurting them. There's a book title that it keeps coming up is When Helping Hurts.
When helping hurts?
Yes. Yeah. You can hurt somebody by helping them too much or in the wrong way. And in this particular case, what the tradcons are trying to do, I think they don't, and I'm actually really quite sure they have no idea of the damage they're actually doing. Because think about all the men who are watching somebody like Nala, who has done horrible, horrible things. All she has to do is go into the church and say, I believe in Jesus. Let me sell some Jesus merch. JP Sears did a great video. I unfortunately I didn't get it in my bookmarks, but JP Sears did a great video on Twitter here recently. Basically that exact plot line. And if you guys don't know him, he's a kind of Christian comedian, well-known comedian on YouTube. Anyway, what the church is doing is they're telling all these other guys that these girls can ignore all of the commandments that these guys have been living by. You know, let's say the guy has kept himself. Okay. Let's say he's done all of that. And now he has to look at this girl and he has to say, and she gets to get run through by 100 guys and I have to take their sloppy seconds.
Yeah.
I did everything right. And and a lot of guys would say, sign me up. She's hot. Okay, great. But you want to know why guys are leaving the church? This is the fraudulent rhetorical device that's causing guys to leave the church.
Right. Because guys know she has that past. Those were in her adventurous days. Now she's moving into her purity days.
Yes.
So regardless of how hot she is, other guys got the adventurous sex. Now purity sex is more like starfish sex.
If you get it at all. Remember, the more nasty you've been, the more likely you are to overreact the other way. That's just human behavior.
So I'm going to mention 3 words, and then I'm going to turn it over to Nick because he can define these better. I think they're confusing 3 words: rationalization, which leads to justification, which is confused with sanctification.
I mean, like perpetual victimhood. So, like, they can
Well,
never be at
a
fault.
woman comes up with an excuse. She rationalizes
Right.
her behavior because she didn't know
Yeah, she's a
better.
victim. She's somehow a
Victimhood.
victim of some man,
And
and
then
those
she
bad
finds
men, they
Jesus.
seduced her, and Jesus forgives me, and blah blah blah.
So
But
she's
I never is
she
those.
justified or sanctified. I guess sanctified would be the salvation event, and
Well,
justified would be the removal of temporal consequences. I don't know. I Okay, you know what? I
so
bring these things up because
justification
there's
is,
a kernel of thought here, but I don't have it straight.
so justification refers to a court of law, right? Sanctification is mean like cleanliness, purity, being sanctified in your life, being more holy. Okay. So she's rationalizing her hamster she's not taking accountability. She's shifting the blame. She's deflecting it onto some man. And if she ever did anything wrong, of course, Jesus forgives me. Okay, sure. But that means actual repentance, which is usually not going on. So the
Hey,
blame
but
is
that would be the
shifted.
court of law. Jesus forgives her. So even though she was guilty, he deemed her not guilty in a court of law.
Right.
That's
And
the
that's where
analogy I'm
antinomianism
using.
comes in, is they want to separate justification. There's a distinction between justification and sanctification, but not a separation, right? So you are justified, but you will also be sanctified because there's a regeneration that's going on when you have faith in Christ. So if you're truly justified by faith in him, then you will repent. You will take ownership and accountability of your actions in life, and then you will draw nearer to Christ and be more like Christ and be more holy.
So your soul might be sanctified, but does that mean your body and your life and the consequences of your past comes along for the
No,
ride?
it doesn't mean they're erased. He can work miracles. Look, God can work miracles, but chances are no, they're still there.
So you're not limiting God, but you're not also binding God to perform a certain way.
Right.
God is not a
He
wishing
normally
well,
does not.
guys.
He normally does not.
Well, okay. Actually, I shouldn't say guys. I should say ladies. God is not a wishing well. You don't go to God, say your Hail Marys, and he causes all your problems, physical and emotional, to go away. He's not a head shrinker. He's not a immaculate doctor. He's no. That's that. That's not what he is. I mean, you can pray for those things, and yes, miracles happen. We're not limiting what he can do, but you don't get to go to him and say, I did X, Y, and Z, therefore give me A, B, and C.
Okay, guys. We are moving into the abstract.
Yeah,
again.
we are.
This was going to be practical. So I'm going to say this now, and I'm going to say it again at the end. Okay, practical. Because I brought this question up to Plutarch, and I'll bring this up at the end again. How do you learn this stuff? You're going to have disagreements, arguments with people, and most especially with women, and your arguments with women are going to be the most troublesome and the hardest to get through. How do you manage this? Well, keep in mind, a woman tends to be greatly skilled at this because she's used her techniques and honed them, and they've been successful. I'm not saying she's an evil genius. I'm just saying she knows from experience. So you, as a man, have to have experience. Where do you get experience and how to move through and identify these arguments? Well, you don't get it by being in them because you're in your logical brain. Best thing you can do is watch clips of videos. And I particularly have learned a lot from the Whatever podcast. And Fresh and Fit does it too. But you see, week after week, twice a week with Whatever, you get a group of women in there. And they say the same things. They argue in a similar manner. Now, those websites or those podcasts are like 7 hours long, and you're going with the flow. You're not going to get it if you just watch the stream. But there are a couple clip websites out there or YouTube channels where they put up a blurb. This is what's going on. And it's typically with Andrew and Brian. Women's arguing this. And then, okay, you got the thought in your brain, and it's 30 minutes, thereabouts, sometimes 20, sometimes 40. And they go through the topic, and you listen to the women and how they use these things and deflect. And you know what? You're not personally invested. You're a disinterested, which means kind of distant observer. And you can gain experience. You can see what they are doing while you are not personally invested. That is how you learn these things. And you need to see these things 10, 20 times. And then it'll get in your brain. Yep, this is how it works. It's repetition. You really want to learn this stuff? That's my recommendation.
Well, and I would add to that. Watching clips is good. I've done a lot of that. Now, my family has always made debate a bit of a sport, so all of our family gatherings tend to be raucous affairs. And so I've grown up around this. I had a little bit of interaction with formal debate when I was in school growing up as well. The formal debate guys, though, the thing that I think, and we were talking about this before the stream too, the thing that I think a lot of the formal debate guys get caught up in is so many of these kinds of arguments, you'll never get experience defending against them in formal debate because there's no way that a formal debater would ever, like, either the moderator won't let it get that far or the other team would never, debate team, right? The other team would, they would never be caught dead making these kind of fallacious arguments because they know that you're going to destroy them if they try. So I think for the formal debaters out there, they don't do as well as, because there's, yes, you need to go out, you need to watch, you need to learn how these things work, and then you need to go out and use it. You need to go out and try it. And one of the things that I love about my family is they give me so many opportunities to try it. I mean, I've got female cousins that, oh yeah, like we can get into it, right? And I've got, let's see, I had my grandparents, my aunts and uncles, all of them. We will all go and we can try this stuff out. And if you don't have somebody like that in your family, look, there's guys out there who love sparring verbally. Now, you're not going to get as much experience on fighting the female aspect of it, but if you spend time around the same woman for a while, you're going to see that she does this. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, but watch the
perhaps have an
clips
example that
because
I've
your
dealt with.
woman. Go ahead, Nick.
I think I have an example. I'm not sure if it totally fits, but we'll
Okay.
see. I had an example a couple days ago. So I was drinking a beer, having my brunch. Well, it was like 3 o'clock. I was having like a bratwurst in my local brewery. I had my beer, and there's this lady, and she's going through having a terrible time. Whatever. I'm friendly with her. She said she was in pain, and I said, "Oh, I'm sorry. I understand." And pain in general. You're just trying to be sympathetic, sympathy, empathy, right? I gave sympathy, right? She was on her monthly thing. I found out afterwards, and she's like, "You don't understand this." I was like, "Oh, don't make the assumption that when I say I understand in the exact same way that you do, but I have a sympathetic understanding of what you're going through." One's harmless, right? But they accuse me of being the subversive in their mind, right? So pain in general, sympathy, empathy. One's harmless, but since I can't be on the empathy, but because I'm a man, right? Therefore, it's subversive. Does that make sense?
Yeah, kind of. I mean, you can't feel exactly what they're feeling,
Yeah.
but you can be,
But I never
yeah,
intended to say
sympathetic.
that. Yeah.
But even sometimes when you're sympathetic, if she's decided you're bad, you're going to be bad regardless.
Oh.
Yes.
Well, this one I was like, well, there's been a whole conversation going on. What really ended up, I saw her face light up. She got totally destroyed in a friendly way, right? So, like the previous time I was there, it's like I pick at her a little bit. She's young, and I'm just that type of person. Have fun with it. And it's like, you'd be pretty funny to get pissed off, right? Get angry, right? It's like, oh, I never get angry. I was like, I want to find a way to get you angry. And so when she got angry that time, I said, and there it is. And
Oh,
the shock on the face
Hey,
ended the
gentlemen,
conversation.
to our listeners, you just saw an example of game, by the way.
Absolute shock on her face. It was over.
Like. That's what it looks like. So, okay, so how might one respond to the Mott and Bailey? Because they've set up two different sort of arguments, and they retreat to one when you wreck. So they retreat to the harmless one when you wreck the subversive one. Honestly, I'm just going to say this. Think about how. I'll put it back up. Think about how I talked about the two different arguments: approve of versus supportive of. You are probably going to have to go to the point when they use this argument of saying no, I'm not even going to support that. And the left, when they do this, let's say on the issue of the T's, right? You just have to go. Eventually, people will just get to, I'm not going to be supportive of it anymore. I can't be. It's every time I'm support because every time you're supportive of, every time you're supportive, they immediately bounce back out here. And that's the purpose of the argument. So this is kind of a thing where you have to go a little scorched earth, leave them no ground to run to, say, no, I can't even support that. And then they'll look at you and go, you're an evil,
okay, let's make it even more real. The reformed woman who comes into the church, who everyone's pressuring you to wife up.
Mm-hmm.
She's saved. She's a new person in Christ. Great. You know what? I'm all in favor of that. I'm not marrying her because I just don't approve of her past. You're not gonna confuse these two. He can be saved, and I'm not gonna judge her, but she's not for me.
Yeah. Like that. And
you're so evil and judgmental.
Yes, you
Okay?
are. But
don't care.
Yeah.
I'm not going there.
Steve,
Okay?
but Steve, you're not supporting her struggle. You're right.
Her
I'm
struggle.
not.
Hey, I am supporting her struggle because her struggle is over. Because now she's a new person in Christ. That struggle is gone. What's there to support? I'm just not going there.
Steve, she has a new struggle now. No, seriously. No, think about this. She has a new struggle now. She made all that money while she was spreading her starfish on the internet. Now she doesn't have that. Now she needs a guy to take care of her. Steve, you better step up and support her.
Oh man. Oh, can you imagine the effect that would have on my soul if I marry her and all that sin money is now touching me and affecting my lifestyle?
Steve,
Oh, those are
you're s-
ill-gotten gains.
Steve,
Ugh.
you're supposed to sacrifice everything, including.
So you mean
your
I can
eternal
enjoy
self.
sin money?
If you listen to the church tell the story. Yeah.
Well, wait a minute. I think there was something in the Bible. Was it Zacchaeus? Wasn't he a tax collector?
Yeah.
Didn't he defraud people? He was a little short guy. And he climbed up in a tree.
Zechariah. Zechariah.
Zacchaeus.
Zacchaeus, yeah.
And Jesus said, Zacchaeus, come down from that tree. I'm
Come down.
dining in your house. And he was a tax collector. And he actually repented. It's in the Bible, and I absolutely believe it. And didn't he tell Jesus that he would return fourfold, 4 times, the amount of money to anyone he defrauded?
Something like that. Is it fourfold or threefold or twofold?
It was fourfold.
Ah.
Because I looked it up a while ago, and that number stuck in mind. So, temporal things, he didn't just get to go, oh, I'm a new person.
4 times the amount.
4 times the amount. So he didn't get to keep his ill-gotten gains.
But Steve, how possibly could Nala give back $48 million? She doesn't have that much. I think she's made 12 million. It's like she doesn't have that much. How could she? She needs to marry a really rich Christian guy if that's what she needs to do.
This is figurative.
I know.
The answer is simple. If fourfold is more money than you have, it basically means you need to give away everything. Everything that you got till you're penniless. I'm a reasonable guy. Not expecting you to go into debt. And no, oh gee, you can't give it back to those exact men. Okay. You could give it to the church. Now, that has problems because what church are you going to give it to? You could start a foundation to fight against men being ensnared in porn. No, not against women going into porn, because those are not the aggrieved parties. That you didn't sin against the women, you sinned against the men. So it has to be against the group. So
Steve,
you need to give up your wealth because of it was ill-gotten gains through sin. That's how I see it.
Steve, I think yet again you've managed to describe the nunnery here.
Well, maybe there's a good reason I'm Catholic. My brain operates in a Catholic manner.
That's a good reason to go with a particular strain of Christianity. There is one more that I would like to get to tonight, and I think I know we're at an hour and a half, but I think this is a really important one because we see this all the time. And it is actually used specifically against men in our space. And this is the fallacy, the logical fraud here is known as the complex question. It is a relative of begging the question. And uh, Socrates has much to say on the topic of complex questions. We're not going to get into that tonight. However, have you guys seen, you out there watching, and you two here, my co-hosts here, have you seen videos of women saying, "Why are men so scared to date?"
Yeah.
I'm sure we've all seen this question. Now, the reason I bring up this example is because they're asking a complex question is it requires you to agree to a presumption in the question. So in order to answer the question at all, you have to agree that men are scared. Okay. It's kind of an attempt to fork your response. And I mean that in like the chess sense, right? You do a fork and so, if you go one way with the response, they can get you going the other way, get you the other way. And so the presumption, of course, in this construction is that men are scared of dating. Now, why is this important? And why does this work so well against men, particularly in the manosphere? Because,
Well,
go ahead.
first of all, that question is on the offense, which puts you in the
Yes.
role of the defense.
Yes.
And not a good place to be. Go ahead.
It may be a valid. It may be. Um, it may be a valid argument, but it's not a sound argument because the presumptions are not true.
Right. And this is Socrates. He actually talks about this. If you go read into it a little bit, just because this is called an informal fallacy, right? It's not a formal failure of logic. It's just that when you dive into it, it's really sophistry because what she wants you to do, and this is the psychological hook, is she wants you to emotionally respond, well, I'm not scared of dating. I'm a big strong man. I'm not scared of this dating thing. What's. And so then she would say, so why aren't you? And then you have to go into all the list of reasons why you're not, you know, or you can say, yes, I am scared of dating. And then she's going to go, well, that just makes you a weak man. She can do two things with that. First, she gets to write you off. You're a weak man. She doesn't have to take you seriously. And you've told her that you are scared by her, right? Because you're scared of dating. So obviously you're scared of dating her. So she now has fear dominance over you. Okay. So on in the manosphere, we of course would say, well, you never answered that you are scared of dating, because that would be admitting that you're not an alpha, that you're not, in your own frame. And I think we're going to see a lot of this kind of rhetoric come up over the next few years, given the sort of the ascendancy of the manosphere content. Chief, I see your comment. We will get to that because that's the solution, or that's one way to solve it.
Well, you did give
So
us a sort of a solution in the notes.
I did, yes. Um, so the typical defense that most men give is really first they either jump to, and almost all men will jump to, I'm not actually scared of dating. And then she's going to go, so why aren't you? And then you're going to have to give this long-winded explanation that's full of rationalizations about why you shouldn't be dating. Okay. And all of those rationalizations are probably true. I'm not trying to discount that. But what she has done has qualified you as a weak ass man.
Hmm.
That's the purpose of the question. The question is actually trying to prove that men are weak and that she shouldn't, that you shouldn't be out here saying that it's bad when you're weak. Talking about how bad the dating situation is. Well, but you're a weak man. If you were less weak, there's lots of us women out here. You could date any of us, like we're all waiting for a guy who isn't scared of dating.
Well, this is a good time. Since she's on the offensive, you need to flip it and go on the offensive towards her.
Yes.
Why are you so afraid to date women? Why do you make that presumption?
Exactly.
Oh, what do you mean? Well, you presume something. Please tell me why you presumed that. Now she has to justify her question. And now she's spinning. Well, I just feel that way. So your feelings are the same as facts? Why are your feelings facts? Okay, just keep pushing. And the more, okay, now you are using her deflection. She is a master at deflection used on you. But she has no experience defending when you go on benevolent offensive against her.
Right.
So you're asserting dominance. Okay. This is not getting to the answer. It's just not letting her steal the frame.
Correct. Pretty much all of these questions and I call them the better responses in the show notes, deal with the concept of they're rooted in the concept of frame. Most of the typical defenses involve surrendering your frame to the framer of the question. We actually call it the framing of the question is a key point in all of these argumentation tactics. They need you to accept their frame of whatever is being debated. Once they do that, they've already won. Now they're just sitting here picking apart whatever you choose to fling at them. However, if in this particular example, you do as Steve says and you flip it right back at him, well, why are you presuming that why do you think I'm scared? Why are you assuming that I'm scared to date? Instead of just saying, notice the difference in the response. The typical response is, oh no, I'm not afraid to date. But in order to answer that question, you have to surrender to the concept that you are afraid to date and you have to defend yourself. Instead, just flip it around and say, how dare you assume that I am afraid to date?
You're flipping the script.
Mm-hmm.
There's other ways to flip the script. Oh. So you're having a problem dating men and men don't want to date you?
Oh.
So you're claiming men are afraid of you? Why do you feel that way?
Projection.
That's a great one. Yeah. So guys, that's another example. You could say, wow, all these guys are afraid to date you?
Oh man, you must have more red flags than a Chinese communist parade.
Now watch her spiral. Just watch her spiral over that. And look, I'm sure in the chat and in the comments afterwards, guys can come up with even more ways of flipping the script on any of these. But the point is, and Here's the thing. You guys have seen, if you want an example of a master at this, go watch Donald Trump. The guy is a master of doing this stuff. You know, Steve, you were talking about examples of Donald Trump doesn't mind taking long form in-person interviews because he knows he can do this. He knows that he can sit there and go, okay, you want to play that game? Fine. Why are you making the assumption that I am this way? What are you, what are you so scared of? Well, or why are you so scary that, men don't want to date you? What is it? And here's the thing. Think about the attitude of the woman asking the question, well, why are you so scared of dating men? You flip it back on them and they have to expose themselves. Hey, it's a channel. It's a show called Exposing the Narrative. Okay. They have to expose themselves now. They have to expose the fact that they really are undateable disasters. And this is what we mean when we talk about frame. When you answer with, oh no, I'm not scared, you're accepting the frame that men are scared of dating, not of her. She now gets to say that your fear is not of her, or that your disinterest is not of her, but it's of dating. When you flip it around, you say, oh, you keep scaring, why do you keep scaring off all these men then? Now you're putting it back on her. You're saying you are the reason that men are, quote unquote, scared of dating. I actually probably wouldn't use the term scared. I would probably say, something to the effect of, oh, so men really don't want to date you, huh? Well, good to know. I guess I won't date you either. And you can just do it in this kind of calm attitude, right? I
Well,
guess I know
men want
Okay.
men want peace, stability.
Yep.
You and your woman aren't sitting in this little rowboat out on a lake. There's no wind. Just calm. Everything. And the sun is shining. It's not too hot. Man, this is just nice. And all of a sudden, it's just too boring. So she stands up and starts jumping up and down. She's rocking the boat. And so now, how are you going to deal with this? Oh, you stand up and you start jumping up and down and rocking the boat. Oh, man.
That won't make things better.
Not going to improve things. Instead of responding to her jumping up and down, if you just sit there and think about it and say, yeah, why are you doing that? What's going on with you? Instead of reacting to her, cause her to react to you. Keep the frame. Because women, if things are too boring, they're going to bring drama. Why? Okay, again, why are we talking about men and women communication and arguments? Because these are the most troublesome to men.
Isn't that
They're the
what we said
ones
at the
that
open?
cause us the biggest problem. And I'm bringing it up at the end. Okay, I'm 62. Am I done learning about this? Hell no. Did I know anything in my 20s and 30s about this? No. Did it bite me in the ass numerous times? Yes.
Yep.
Am I skilled at this now? No. But do I know a lot more? And do I did learn this like 15 years ago. Don't get angry. Don't get sucked in. Because I did that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I moved to the
Don't
next
get sucked
stage.
in.
No. Okay, so I didn't get angry with women with my woman, the second woman. Okay, it still turned out the same. Well, yes, in some ways, I still let her take the frame. So I'm still learning. But the thing is, and I brought this up earlier, you guys right now with the internet, okay, I started in the early days of the red pill where the blogs and people were writing out their experiences. Yep, that was really good. But now watch some of these shows. Watch how women react on whatever and fresh and fit because these women react the same way as your woman. And you can see multiple women doing these same argumentative tactics, and you can gain a lot more experience at a young age than I ever could. So make use of these resources. And you know what? You're going to be a student of this for the next, well, until you die.
Yeah. To the guys out there, part of the reason that I wanted to talk about the psychological hooks is, I mean, when we're talking about psychology, we are talking about frame. And when you maintain your frame, these psychological hooks, they don't hook you very well. Right. And so that's what I'm hoping you guys see is that the the difference between the guys who get it and the guys who don't is the guys who get it don't give up their frame. They do not become sucked in by these psychological hooks. Now, this doesn't say all guys are going to be that these guys are perfect all the time. They're not. They get sucked in too. Now, typically they're going to realize that faster and they're going to turn it around and get out of there quicker, which by the way, women also appreciate. Oh, well, I sucked him in, but I couldn't keep him. Darn it. It's not quite the same thing as just not getting sucked in, but it's not terrible. Okay. So don't expect perfection out of yourself. You're not going to get it. But when you see it happening to you, stop it, flip the argument around, or just walk away. I've done that too. It's like and then deal with it later. If it's something you actually need to deal with, most of the time it's not.
Another way to look at this is one giant, massive shit test.
Yeah.
And if you take her frame, she will lose attraction for you. And if you do it often enough, she will develop contempt.
Yes.
If you can maintain your frame without getting aggressive or angry, could and should increase her attraction for you.
Yes.
Or on that other chance that she's just, well, let's use a technical term, batshit crazy.
It happens.
Then you know what? She won't stick around, and you'll be able to distance yourself. Was that the proper technical term, Nick?
I don't know if you can completely distance yourself, but
But
do what
you know
can.
what? It's gonna, if she's batshit crazy,
It's not
it's
going to end
gonna
well.
end.
It's
It's not
going
gonna,
to end. It probably
but
won't
it
end
will
very well.
end. It will end.
And the faster you recognize it, the better.
Yes. No, in all cases. So, when Steve, you're saying go out and watch. Watching is good. Watching is necessary. Learn from the mistakes of others. But don't be afraid of getting yourself into a situation where you have to get yourself out. And yeah, the reason we talk about this, the reason we say go watch this is not because we think that, when you're around the table tomorrow or, on Wednesday, that you're going to be able to just immediately and always see the arguments coming. You're not. These arguments are examples, but you slow down, you think about it, deconstruct the argument rationally for a little bit, and you can go, wait a minute, I don't have to react emotionally here. I can react with a little bit of, uh, forethought. And it used to be that particularly in debate, but just in formal rhetoric, that when asked a question, it was expected that you would pause to consider your answer. I think we should bring that back. I think we should make that a social thing again. That pause is to give you the chance to collect your thoughts and formulate a proper response. Treat this like that. And don't expect to walk in and be able to go, yeah, I've got all the armor. I know all the different arguments. I know, all I need to do is keep my frame. You're going to get sucked in. The key for you guys right now, and I have to do this to this day. Remember, I'm married and she shit tests. And occasionally I do get sucked in. But when you catch yourself getting sucked in, don't continue. Stop. Reorient. Do something else. Maybe you're so far in that these particular exit strategies don't work anymore and you have to do something else. But the one thing you cannot do, that cannot win, is to keep going. That's like the one way you will never win.
Well, if you notice how we talk, one of us talks for a while and then usually comes to an end, and then the next guy talks for a while. And when he comes to an end, then it gets passed on, or occasionally we'll interrupt. But if someone else is talking, we'll back off. Okay, women don't use those rules. That pause, they will jump if you just take a minute breath in the middle of talking, she's gonna jump in.
Yes. Oh.
Okay. He's going to use a lot more words in an argument than you will. And interrupting her and trying to get your point in. And now you're thinking, okay, I got to refute this point, and this point, and this point, and this point.
You're playing her game, guys.
You're playing her game. So just sit back and talk and let her talk. Okay, here's the other strategy. You've been talking. You know what? I missed your point. What was the first point you said?
Mm-hmm.
What was your original question here? And now she's got to go back, and she's on. Okay, you're innocently. Oh, you know what? I lost the train of thought in all those words. Could you please restate your question?
Oof,
they hate puts that her one. It puts her on the defensive because she doesn't know what the fuck her point was or what her real question was. He's just trying to get you to react. And if you react, what are you reacting to her? All she wanted was a reaction. She didn't give a shit about the information. So that's a way to keep your frame. You don't even have to engage with everything she's saying. It's all, remember I said, it's all about her emotions. It's not about the words she's using. It's about what she's feeling.
Yep.
They even say, well, you seem very passionate about this. What's really on your mind? Well, what are you feeling?
And gentlemen, you can use this tactic at the family dinner table this Tuesday and Wednesday. You can just sit back. Somebody come. Okay, you're a single guy. Your aunt, mom, grandma, whoever comes in and says, "Well, when are you going to start dating? Who are you dating?" They start peppering you with questions. And you say, "Oh, well, I'm not dating." Wait a minute. Well, why aren't you dating? What's wrong with dating? And then you
just had that conversation.
Yeah, exactly. And then you get into all the red pill reasons why dating is a shit show. Okay. And then they start assailing you for those reasons. You just sit back and you calmly go, "No, I'm just not doing that right now and I already gave you the reasons, but this and that and this and that." Women, and not just women, a lot of men too, realize that the way to beat you is to get you emotional.
Oh, do you really think I should date? Oh, yeah. Well, okay. What kind of woman do you think I should look for? Okay. I got to answer that. Oh, gee. Do you know any
Oh,
women
boy.
that fit that criteria? So ask what, just ask innocent questions to flip it back on them.
Yeah. And they don't have to be. Go ahead.
Well, my mom in particular, I just don't care.
Well, it's easier to not respond emotionally when you don't care.
Just don't care.
And
I'd just tell her, huh? It's not for lack of offers. It's just lack of quality, and it's not worth it.
right. You, guys, one of the other things that happens, part of these arguments, they're because they're an attempt to get you to emote. They're an attempt to get you guys to start talking, because when you start talking, you open yourself up to I'll call it a tax, but you open yourself up to, well, but what about this? But have you considered that? But we talked about one recently that I had to deal with after or during Thanksgiving, and we did a whole stream on it. It was the oh, I forget what it was. Sorry, it's been 2 hours and my mind is blanking out. But we did one of those, and we didn't. I ended up not responding that much to it. Oh, it was the I don't trust Elena. It was about how I didn't trust Elena, and it's like, and I ended up not responding to it much at all. And somebody else stepped in and said, "Yeah, that's not a very good. You don't understand the argument here. You don't understand what's being discussed. And if you want to have that conversation, you need to do something else. But it's just like, what am I supposed to say? That I just don't respond to it.
I had I learned this one, and it's very difficult, very uncomfortable, but it's super powerful. When you're in a discussion, you just don't answer.
Mm-hmm. Everyone hates it.
You just don't say a word, and
That's what I
that
did.
silence just gets thick and uncomfortable. And if you can master your uncomfort,
yes,
and outlast them, they will get so uncomfortable that they will start talking. This is particularly powerful if you're negotiating with someone else.
Yes,
They will give up. They will give up a lot of things that you could not argue them into giving up if you just don't talk, because they will fill the silence. And every time they fill the silence, they're buying into your frame. They're asking for they're basically seeking your approval. They're offering you more information.
Yep.
Silence is so unbelievably
Mum's
powerful,
the word.
but it's so hard to do. You need to actually
sales
practice
tactic.
it. Yes.
It's a sales tactic called "Mum's the word." So he who opens his mouth first loses.
Yeah. And guys, it works at the family dinner table. It really does. I did it earlier this year. Now, eventually the silence will break, and the silence was broken in a different direction by another person. That's what I was talking about. But I never gave up my frame for it, and somebody else comes in and says, "Well, okay, that's not really what the conversation is about. You're actually kind of attacking them now." And if you want to have that conversation, you're going to have to use a totally different approach. And I'm like, yep. But it's like having a third party come in and sort of set that aside actually de-escalated the tension of the conversation too. But just sitting there being comfortable with silence. Speaking of,
I'm practicing that right now.
yeah. Well, Elena's buzzing around right now, so I had to turn off my mic for a bit.
Uh-oh.
Well, Okay, have we done enough for tonight? We're at
Oh yes, we
Yes.
two
have.
hours and 5 minutes.
Yeah, I definitely I wanted to get to that scared of dating thing. I think you'll hear it from you guys are going to hear it from your family. Why are you so scared of dating? Uh, recognize it for what it is. Turn it back on them. You know, it's
So, in conclusion, I want to say, guys, go out there, watch some things, observe, don't react, maintain silence, ask questions, observe what other women do, and then start practicing some of these things. It's going to take you need to gain these skills. These skills do not come merely from knowledge.
Mhm.
You need the knowledge, but then you need to practice it. And you know, it's an ongoing thing. And
Always
the
be
better
learning.
you do this, you will improve your life or not be bound up with or not be linked to a woman who is contentious. Because every woman gets contentious at times.
Oh yes.
You're going to have to deal with that too.
And I mean, don't go inviting contention. The women naturally have enough of it in them. Silence is golden. Silence is worth its weight in gold. Nick, do you have anything else you want to say before we close out here?
No, guys, I think we covered everything pretty well. And remember the Bible verses about the contentious women. Sometimes you can have all the frame in the world and there's nothing you can do about it, but you do what you can. And we had some good advice here. Thank you, Plutarch. We got
Well, it
anything
wasn't
else
just me.
going on? Well, and Steve, yeah. But you're the one leading it, so I was giving
Okay.
you credit.
Okay. Oh,
Steve.
thank you.
Yep.
We have no idea what we're going to do for next Monday, guys. But we have a whole week to figure it out because we're not doing our show on Wednesday because we'll all be eating dinner with our respective family members, and you should be too. Or
I probably
friends or
won't be here
family.
Monday anyways, because I'll have my kids. So
Okay, well, Steve and I will have to come up with something. Maybe we'll get super nerdy or I don't know. I don't know what we'll do. Yeah, as I said, we have no idea. But yeah. And then again the following Wednesday, everyone should be out with their family, not listening to us. So we're gonna have the next two or next week is just the Monday show, and the next two Wednesdays, no show. So yeah, if you guys liked what you heard, drop us a like. If you disagree with us, please drop a comment. We get back to them somewhat. I mean, not necessarily right away. You know, again, there's holidays going on, and all of us do work for a living. So, you know, the YouTube channel is what we do as kind of a hobby. Um, and you know, if you know a guy who could use what they've heard tonight, or maybe another video we've done, please share it with them. The purpose of these videos is to be shared with men. It's to help men. If it was just us talking into a void, for stat bars on a YouTube analytics page, I don't think any of us would be doing this. So, yeah. That's all we have for this week, guys. We will see you next Monday.
you guys.